March 8th, 1862, Hampton Roads, Virginia. The sailors of the Union's blockade fleet hang laundry from the rigging, blue and white clothes dry in the late winter sun. It is a quiet morning, routine, ordinary. Then the water begins to shake. A shape emerges from the Elizabeth River. It moves like a floating barn roof, low and massive, belching black smoke from a single stack. It is the USS Virginia, an ironclad warship, built from the burned hull of a captured Union frigate, wrapped in 4 inches of iron plate and armed with 10 guns and a 1,500-pound iron ram bolted beneath the waterline. The Union sailors stare. Their ships are made of wood. Virginia does not slow down. She drives straight into the fleet. Her iron hull shrugs off cannon fire. She rams USS Cumberland below the waterline. Cumberland fills and sinks in minutes, taking more than 100 men with her. Then Virginia turns to USS Congress. She fires until Congress burns. By late afternoon, over 240 Union sailors are dead. It is the bloodiest day in American naval history. One ship remains, USS Minnesota. She is grounded on a sandbar and cannot move. She will be Virginia's first kill in the morning. That night, another vessel slips into Hampton Roads. No one celebrates its arrival. It sits so low in the water, it is nearly invisible. Its deck rides just 18 inches above the surface. It carries 2 guns, only 2, tucked inside a single iron cylinder that sits amidships like a drum. Sailors who see it call it the cheese box on a raft. Its real name is USS Monitor. It was built in 100 days at the Continental Iron Works in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Designed by John Ericsson, a Swedish-American inventor who packed 40 patented innovations into a single hull. The Navy doubted him. Critics called it Ericsson's folly. Ericsson did not argue. He built it anyway. Monitor's crew numbers 63 men, all volunteers. They sleep below the waterline in hammocks, and on goatskin mats. They have no windows. Iron hatches seal the only skylight shut when battle begins. Oil lamps burn in the dark. The iron walls around them hold in the heat, hold in the noise, hold in everything. Tomorrow morning, those walls will be tested. March 6th, 1862, New York Harbor. USS Monitor leaves the East River under tow. The ocean-going tug. Seth Lowe pulls her south. 2 gunboats follow as escorts. The crew stands on deck and watches the city disappear behind them. Paymaster William Keeler writes a letter to his wife Anna. The sea is smooth, he tells her. The sky is fair. The little ship rides better than he expected. That changes within hours. The wind picks up off the coast of New Jersey. Waves roll across Monitor's flat deck. The ship sits so low that water does not crash over the sides. It simply arrives. It spreads across the deck in sheets and finds every gap, every seam, every opening it can reach. Water pours down the anchor chain pipes. It floods down the blower shafts, the ventilation tubes that push fresh air into the engine room below. The blower belts are made of leather. Leather stretches when wet. The belts slip off their pulleys. The blowers stop. Below deck, the engine room fills with gas. Carbon dioxide and coal smoke have nowhere to go. The firemen and engineers breathe it in. One by one, they go down. Around 4 in the afternoon, Keeler descends the turret ladder to the berth deck. He finds an engineer climbing up toward him, pale, soaking wet, black with soot, staggering, gasping, asking for brandy. Behind him, sailors drag other engineers and firemen up from below. Some appear lifeless. First Assistant Engineer Isaac Newton orders the engine room abandoned. He and Chief Engineer Alban Steimers work to restart the blowers. Both men succumb to the fumes. Both are hauled to the top of the turret where the air is clean. One fireman saves the ship. He finds the fan box, punches a hole in it with his fist, drains the water out, and restarts the fan. The blowers come back. The engines restart. The pumps clear the engine room. The sick men are carried back below. The crew does not sleep that night. Supper is crackers, cheese, and water. Later, the wheel ropes controlling the rudder jam. Monitor begins to drift. She cannot hold her heading in the rough seas. Captain Worden signals Sethlow for help. The tug tows Monitor into calmer water, closer to shore. The engines stabilize. By 3 in the afternoon on March 8th, Monitor rounds Cape Charles and enters the Chesapeake Bay. By 9 that evening, she reaches Hampton Roads. The fighting from the day before has already ended, but the evidence of it covers the water. USS Congress still burns on the surface. Her fire lights the harbour orange. USS Minnesota sits grounded on the sandbar, unable to move, waiting for dawn. Civilian vessels flee in every direction. Keeler watches their running lights scatter across the water. Monitor anchors near Minnesota and waits. Inside Monitor, the architecture of the ship is unique, unlike anything in any navy on Earth. Every room sits below the waterline. The hull is essentially 2 layers: a lower iron hull shaped like a conventional vessel, and a flat upper deck called the raft that extends past the lower hull on both sides. The raft sits 18 inches above the water. In rough seas, it disappears entirely. The turret rises from the centre of the raft. It is a cylinder of iron, 20 feet wide and 9 feet tall. Its walls are built from 8 layers of 1-inch wrought iron plate bolted together. The total thickness is 8 inches. It weighs 160 tons. Inside that cylinder sit 2 11-inch Dahlgren smoothbore guns. Each one weighs more than 7 tons. Each gun is crewed by 8 men. In total, up to 19 men work inside the turret during battle, loading, aiming, firing, and managing the rotation of the entire structure. The turret rotates on a central spindle. A small steam-powered auxiliary engine drives the rotation. The gears reduce the effort needed and allow the engine to spin 160 tons through a full circle in about 30 seconds. That is fast, faster than any gunner can reliably aim and stop. The gun ports are the only openings in the turret wall. 2 ports, 1 per gun. When the guns are not firing, large iron pendulums, shaped like teardrops, hang over each port from pivots at the top of the opening. They seal the port shut. To fire, the crew swings the pendulum out of the way, runs the gun out, fires, pulls the gun back in, reloads, and seals the port again. The pendulums are extremely heavy. Moving them requires multiple men every single time. At the forward end of the upper deck, a small armoured box rises a few feet above the surface. This is the pilot house. Captain Worden stands inside it during battle. He steers the ship and commands the crew through a narrow slit in the iron, a gap just wide enough to see through. A voice tube connects the pilot house to the turret below so Worden can relay orders to his gun crew. The tube runs through the ship's structure. It is functional in port. In battle, it is the first thing to fail. The crew of 63 men did not come from the same place. Many were born in Europe, in Ireland, in Scandinavia. During the Civil War, foreign-born men made up 1/4 of all enlisted Union sailors. The shortage of experienced American seamen meant the Navy recruited broadly. On March 9th, 3 Swedes served aboard Monitor, Mark T. Sundström, 3rd Assistant Engineer, and seamen Hans Andersen and Charles Peterson, stationed in the gun turret. The ship's designer was also Swedish. Some of the men signed up specifically because of Ericsson. One sailor from Bombay described his first impression of Monitor as nothing but a few inches of deck above the water, a big round tower in the centre, and a pilot house at the end. He wrote that it looked strange, but it also looked like it meant business. The officers lived in 8 small cabins near the bow. Each cabin had a wooden table, a chair, an oil lamp, shelves, drawers, and a canvas floor. John Ericsson paid for the furnishings himself. The enlisted men had no cabins. They slung hammocks in a common room behind the wardroom. They had goatskin mats, storage lockers along the walls, and oil lamps. What they did not have was windows, natural light, or fresh air once the hatches sealed. Any view of the outside world during battle disappeared. When the iron hatches over the skylights closed, the men below were sealed inside completely. The only exit was the turret hatch at the top of the gun cylinder. George Gear, a fireman aboard Monitor, wrote more than 80 letters to his wife, Martha, throughout the ship's service. His letters, known as the Monitor Chronicles, describe daily life in specific, physical terms, what the men ate, what the ship smelled like, and what happened when things broke. Paymaster Keeler's letters to his wife Anna cover the same period from an officer's perspective. Both men wrote with clarity and detail. Both sets of letters survive. They are housed at the Mariners Museum in Newport News, Virginia. These letters are how we know what it was actually like inside. The men had not trained for this type of warfare. No one had. The turret was a new invention. The rotation system was untested in combat. The communication between the pilot house and the gun crew depended entirely on a voice tube that had never been used under fire. On the morning of March 9th, they would find out what worked and what did not in real time. Against a ship that had already destroyed 2 Union warships and killed over 240 men. Virginia leaves her anchorage at Sewell's Point at dawn. She moves directly toward the grounded USS Minnesota. Inside Monitor, Worden gives the order. The engines build pressure. The turret crew takes their positions. 16 men packed into a 20-foot iron cylinder, powder charges stacked, gun tackles in hand. The iron pendulums hang over the closed gun ports. Then Virginia turns. She sees Monitor. Worden orders the engines to full, and Monitor moves toward Virginia at 6 knots, her maximum speed. Both ships close the distance. Within range, Worden calls all stop to the engines and sends a single command through the voice tube to the gun crew. Commence firing. March 9, 1862. Hampton Roads, Virginia. Dawn. CSS Virginia leaves her anchorage at Sewell's Point and moves toward USS Minnesota. She expects an easy kill. Minnesota is still grounded, still helpless. The Confederate crew saw what Virginia did to Cumberland and Congress the day before. They expect the same result. Then they see Monitor. The Union Ironclad sits between Virginia and Minnesota, low, small, waiting. One Confederate officer describes Monitor as looking like a tin can on a shingle. He is not wrong. She is tiny compared to Virginia's bulk, but she is between them and their target. Virginia keeps moving, so does Monitor. The two ships close the distance. Neither turns away. Inside Monitor's turret, the gun crew stands ready in the dark. The space is 20 feet wide and 9 feet tall. 16 men fill it, 8 men per gun. Powder handlers, gun captains, men on the tackles. The iron walls are 8 inches thick on all sides. There are no chairs, no benches. The men stand on the iron floor with their hands on the equipment and wait for the order. Worden calls all stop to the engines. Monitor drifts to within yards of Virginia. He sends the command through the voice tube. Commence firing. The crew swings the iron pendulums clear of the gun ports. They run the guns out. The muzzles extend through the openings in the turret wall. The gun captains sight along the barrels. Virginia fills the port opening completely. The Dahlgrens fire. The sound inside the turret is not a boom. It is a physical event. The concussion moves through every man's chest at the same moment. The smoke has nowhere to go. It fills the turret instantly. The men reload in smoke so thick they work by touch and memory. Then Virginia fires back. The first Confederate shells strike the turret wall. The impact travels through 8 inches of iron and arrives on the inside as a shockwave. Men who are touching the walls at the moment of impact are knocked off their feet. Several are concussed outright. Chief Engineer Alban Steimers, inside the turret as an observer, takes a blow from the transmitted force and goes down. But the iron holds. When the first shells hit and the turret does not rupture, the gun crew understands something important. They are safe inside. The armor works. Virginia cannot kill them through the walls. What Virginia can do is aim for the gun ports. The voice tube breaks within minutes of the first exchange. The connection between Worden in the pilot house and Green in the turret is gone. Worden can still steer the ship. He can see through the narrow slit in the pilot house wall. But the gun crew inside the turret cannot see Virginia. Their only view of the outside world is the narrow gap between the gun barrel and the top of the gun port, and only when the turret has rotated to the exact angle where the port faces the target. Worden sends runners. Men sprint the length of the ship from the pilot house to the turret hatch, climb up, relay the order, climb back down, and sprint back. It takes time. Every relay is a delay. Inside the turret, Green tries to aim by stopping the rotation at the right moment. The auxiliary engine drives the turret through a full circle in 30 seconds. Stopping it precisely on target requires Green to anticipate the rotation, cut the engine at the right instant, and fire before the turret drifts past the mark. He cannot do it consistently. Virginia moves. Monitor moves. The angle changes constantly. The turret overshoots. Green reverses the engine, overshoots again. The men on the gun tackles weight. They have loaded the Dahlgrens. They are ready to fire. But the port sweeps past Virginia before they can pull the lanyards. Green makes a decision. He stops trying to halt the rotation. He lets the turret keep spinning and fires when the guns bear, on the fly, as Virginia passes through the narrow field of view of the open port. The shot window is less than a second wide. The gun captains learn to read the spin and pull the lanyard at the exact instant the target appears. It is not precision gunnery, it is instinct. The chalk marks last less than 10 minutes. Before the battle, the crew carefully marked the stationary deck, beneath the turret with chalk lines indicating compass bearings, where the bow is, where the stern is, and where starboard and port lie. The marks are meant to give the gun crew spatial orientation as the turret rotates around them. The heat inside the turret is already climbing past 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The men are sweating through their clothes. Sweat drips from their faces and hands onto the iron floor. The chalk lines dissolve. Within minutes, the floor is wet and bare. The gun crew loses all reference points. They do not know if they are facing the bow or the stern. They do not know which direction Virginia is. They fire when they see her through the port. Between shots, they are inside a sealed iron cylinder that is slowly spinning, filled with powder smoke, in air that gets hotter with every broadside. The temperature climbs toward 140 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat from the guns, the boilers below, the powder charges, the lamps, and the bodies of 16 men baking inside 8 inches of iron raises the air to the edge of what a man can survive. The crew breathes shallow. They work in short bursts. They do not stop. Outside, the battle looks almost peaceful from a distance. 2 iron ships circling each other in a harbour. Small splashes where the shells land short. The occasional clang of iron on iron. Inside, it is a different world entirely. Virginia tries everything. She fires her bow guns, her stern guns, her broadside rifles. Shell after shell strikes Monitor's turret, and either bounces off or shatters against the iron. The dents are visible, but the armour does not crack. Virginia tries to ram Monitor the way she rammed Cumberland. Monitor turns aside. Virginia's iron ram, already damaged from the previous day's fighting, lands only a glancing blow. The 2 ships circle each other for 4 hours. Below, in Monitor's engine room, the coal stokers work in darkness. They cannot see the battle. They feel it. Every impact vibrates through the hull and into the deck beneath their feet. They shovel coal into the furnaces, maintain steam pressure, and listen to the iron around them absorb punishment they cannot see. The men in the engine room know nothing about how the battle is going. They know only what the gauges tell them and what they feel through their boots. Above them, the turret keeps spinning. Just after noon, Virginia's rifled stern gun fires at a range of 10 yards. The shell strikes Monitor's pilot house directly. Worden is at the viewing slit at the moment of impact. The concussion drives iron fragments and powder residue through the narrow opening and into his face. He staggers back, his eyes are filled with burned powder and metal fragments. He cannot see. Worden calls to his officers. He tells them he is disabled. He transfers command to Executive Officer Samuel Dana Green. His last order before stepping back from the slit is, "Save the Minnesota if you can." Green takes command. He orders Monitor into the shallow water near the shore. The water is too shallow for Virginia's deep draft to follow. The ship pulls back to assess the damage and the captain's wounds. On Virginia, Confederate officer Catesby Jones watches Monitor withdraw into the shallows. He believes Monitor has broken off the fight. He waits. His own ship has taken damage. Several of her guns are disabled. Her crew is exhausted. Jones turns Virginia towards Sewell's Point. When Green brings Monitor back to re-engage, Virginia is already leaving. Both sides claim victory. Neither ship is destroyed. Neither crew is defeated. But both commanders file their reports and describe the other ship as retreating. The gun crew climbs out of the turret. They have been inside it for more than 4 hours. They come out soaked in sweat, faces black from powder smoke, ears ringing from the concussions. Some men move slowly. Their hands shake from the repeated shock of the gun carriages slamming back on recoil. Several cannot hear clearly. The men who touch the turret walls at the moment of Virginia's impacts carry bruises across their shoulders and arms where the shockwaves arrived. They stand on the flat deck of Monitor in the open air and breathe. The harbour around them is quiet. Virginia is gone. Minnesota is still afloat. The Union fleet is intact. The blockade holds. Author Nathaniel Hawthorne visits Monitor shortly after the battle. He walks her deck and looks at the turret and calls her the strangest looking craft he has ever seen, a giant rat trap. He writes that there is no remoteness of life and thought, no hermetically sealed seclusion, except possibly that of the grave, to compare with the existence of these men aboard their iron vessel. The crew does not use the word grave. They call themselves the Monitor Boys. The iron box kept them alive. They intend to stay inside it. The two ships never fight again. CSS Virginia sits bottled up in Hampton Roads. She cannot break the blockade. She cannot reach the open sea. On May 11th, 1862, the Confederate crew destroys her themselves rather than let the Union capture her. They light the powder magazine and walk away. Monitor stays on station. She patrols Hampton Roads through the spring and summer. She fights at Drury's Bluff on the James River. She becomes the most famous warship in America. Crowds line the wharves in Washington to see her. Carriages queue for hours. On December 24th, 1862, the orders arrive. Proceed to Beaufort, North Carolina. The Monitor Boys know what that means. Open ocean, the same seas that nearly killed them on the voyage down in March. The tug USS Rhode Island takes the Monitor under tow on December the 29th. New Year's Eve, Cape Hatteras. The storm hits. The waves find the gaps. Water floods the engine room. The pumps fail. The fires go out. Captain Bankhead orders the red distress lantern hoisted. Rhode Island sends boats. Most men make it off. 16 do not. The Monitor goes to the bottom at 1 a.m. on January 1st, 1863. In 2002, salvage crews raise the turret from 230 feet of water. Inside it, they find the remains of 2 sailors. Their names are still unknown. The iron kept its secrets.